Hello and welcome to Factual Insider, the channel that strives to cover as many facts as possible. Today we will be discussing 10 facts about Hyperdimension Neptunia Victory that you may not know. If you find any of the facts to be interesting, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. Please be aware that this video will contain spoilers, so you have been warned. With that being said, let's get started. Number 1. Hyperdimension Neptunia Victory, which was the third installment in the Hyperdimension Neptunia franchise, decided to keep the style of gameplay and dungeon exploration that was first introduced in Hyperdimension Neptunia Mark II after fans and critics alike did not like the take on dungeon exploration and gameplay in the original entry of Hyperdimension Neptunia. Of course, being a game that was worked on by Idea Factory and Compile Heart, it should come as no surprise that both companies decided to add a few subtle references of their other franchises into the dungeon exploration of Hyperdimension Neptunia Victory. Players can encounter an enemy known as a Shampuru that are small bunny-like creatures from the game New Gen Souls, which is another JRPG franchise by Idea Factory and Compile Heart. Number 2. The Hyperdimension Neptunia series has been loved by many fans for its various references of other gaming franchises and the fact that the setting of Hyperdimension Neptunia is based off of the real-life game industry. While this would not be the first time that Hyperdimension Neptunia would reference something that isn't strictly related to gaming, players can find Rokube in Planeptune and the Contracted Angel that can be found in various dungeons in the game. Both Rokube and the Contracted Angel are based off of Kyubi from the anime Puella Magi Madoka Magica. While fans of the anime could notice this instantly, it could easily be missed to Neptunia fans that are strictly looking for gaming references. Number 3. Introducing new characters into the series, Hyperdimension Neptunia Victory introduces newcomers Plutia, Pishi, Rayrites along with new renditions of the four goddesses with the exception of Neptune. For fans that are not aware of the representations of the new main characters in the game, Plutia is based off of the Mega Drive, which is what the Sega Genesis was called in Japan and Europe, while Pishi is based off of PC Engine, which is what the TurboGrafx 16 is called in Japan, and finally Rayrites is themed off of the Atari 2600. As for the four main goddesses in the new dimension that Neptune has found herself in, Noah represents the original PlayStation, Vert represents the original Xbox, and finally Blonde is themed off the Famicom, which what the Nintendo Entertainment System was called in Japan. Despite Neptune getting a new outfit for her HDD form and human form in the game, she is still themed off of the cancelled Sega console, the Neptune. Number 4. Players may remember that during cutscenes, Rayrites shows very bizarre, strange and crude illustrations to the goddesses in the game's story. Funny enough, the strange drawings were made by her Japanese voice actress, which was Yu Kobayashi. Number 5. Set in a dimension that is themed off of the past than the current dimension that Neptune along with the three other goddesses and the CPU candidates reside in, the new dimension in Hyperdimension Neptunia Victory also shows characters that are themed off of past game companies and shows the characters that were in the game industry graveyard to be alive and well in the dimension. For the representations, please be sure to check out our other video 15 interesting facts about Hyperdimension Neptunia Mark II you may not know. Players can also see Falcom in the new dimension with a new look that looks younger than she did originally in Hyperdimension Neptunia Mark II. Most likely this difference occurred to help her fit in better within the new dimension that is themed off of the past. Number 6. New antagonist Rayrites has some very interesting background behind her name. For those that have examined her name carefully, her name is a play-off of the term rewrites. In her HDD form that players have to fight against at the end of the game, she is the only goddess that keeps the same name as her human form. In the Colosseum, in which players can also fight her there as well, she is called the CPU of Chaos. Number 7. Nobuo Uematsu is a Japanese composer that has worked on soundtracks for many different games and has done a lot of work especially for the Final Fantasy lineup of games. Included on his roster of compositions of game soundtracks, Hyperdimension Neptunia Victory is included, and he would also have help from his rock band that he is a part of called Earthbound Papas. Despite Nobuo Uematsu along with his band working on the soundtrack for Hyperdimension Neptunia Victory, they alone would not work on the entire soundtrack themselves. Number 8. In the Japanese releases of Hyperdimension Neptunia titles, the names of the characters have been mostly consistent with the releases of the Hyperdimension Neptunia franchise worldwide. Newcomers Plutia and Pishi have different names in the Japanese release along with future Hyperdimension Neptunia titles as well. Plutia in the Japanese releases is named Puru Rut while Pishi is named as Piish. Number 9. While dungeon exploration and gameplay has mostly been consistent in the mainline entries of the Hyperdimension Neptunia franchise, fans that have never played the first 3 entries of the series and have only been introduced through the Rebirth trilogy may not realize that Hyperdimension Neptunia Victory would introduce a new addition into dungeon exploration that is easily taken for granted. Introduced into Victory, players could now have selected characters in their party for dungeon exploration to jump while exploring dungeons. While this is a simple addition, many fans of Hyperdimension Neptunia would not realize this unless they played the first 3 entries of the series. Number 10. The 7 sages that were the main antagonists that were introduced into Hyperdimension Neptunia Victory are speculated to represent reasons as to why people do not buy video games. Ray writes, despite being a representation of the Atari 2600, is also speculated to represent older video games and consoles as a reason as to why people do not buy new video games. As for the other 6 members, R4 and Pure Ichu in Hyperdimension Neptunia Victory both represent illegal piracy of video games. Abnaz represents parents who do not allow children to buy and play video games. Mr. Bad represents greedy video game developers. Copy-paste represents toys, and finally Anonadeth represents hackers, glitches and computer viruses. Well, there you have it. Those were 10 facts about Hyperdimension Neptunia Victory you may not know. Hope that the video was enjoyable and entertaining. You are encouraged to watch more facts about gaming and other miscellaneous topics. See you next time.